When it comes to arcade gaming, a lot of attention is given to companies like Capcom and Konami, but Irem made some great arcade games as well. Many of them I've talked about before on the channel. In this episode of the Big Retro Show, I'm going to be talking about some of the best arcade games made by Irem. Let's kick things off with Air Assault. Released in 1993, Air Assault is an overhead shoot-'em-up that has shades of games like Raiden and plays very similarly to that game. The game's controls harken back to a time when you could save the world by only pressing 2 buttons. I miss those days. This is a game that I actually never played in the arcade, and it wasn't until I started thinking about the games to include in this episode that I busted it out, and I'm glad I did. The game is simple: shoot everything in sight and avoid being shot down. You start with just a basic gun, but quickly upgrade to more powerful weapons. The weapons can be acquired by picking up crystal power-ups that are dropped by your enemies. They change color that represents the different weapon types. There's a spread gun, the laser beam, the shot that goes every way, and a more of a machine gun-like shot. The more crystals you collect, the more your weapons power up, sort of like in Raiden. You can also use screen-clearing bombs to gain the upper hand. You take on the game's 8 stages and fight your way to the final bosses at the end of the stage. I have to say that this is one of the more forgiving shoot-'em-ups I have ever played, with most bosses going down by simply unloading your bombs on them. Another cool power-up that exists in this game grants you a fully upgraded weapon. This comes in handy, especially when you die and lose all of your power-ups. Air Assault's graphics and sounds aren't as bright as other colorful shoot-'em-ups I've played, but they fit the bill, and more importantly, fit the whole graphical style that a lot of these Irem arcade games are known for. Air Assault is a fun shmup that is worth popping in a few quarters into if you ever see it in the wild. Air Duel is another of Irem's shmups that released in 1990. Sadly, this game is not as fun as Air Assault and is unfortunately quite mediocre. You and another player take on a mysterious enemy known as the Mad Mother Computer, properly named Enemy Chief. It's wacky. You can play as either an airplane that shoots only vertically, or a helicopter that allows you to aim your shots, but whose shots are weaker. Sounds like fun, eh? The game also allows you to power up your shots by collecting power-up icons, but not by much. The game sort of reminds me of the shooting that takes place in games like 1942. You get no spectacular spread shots or lightning guns or anything like that. Your weapons are overall bland. Your enemies in this game are your standard ships, midships, and bosses, and they are not fun to fight. Your ship is also armed with 5 bombs that replenish when you die, and you will want to use these as much as you can because you will be dying a lot, and I hate wasting bombs. The game's graphics aren't as polished as some of the other Irem games, and the songs are overall forgettable. I wish I had something more positive to say about this game because I really wanted to like it, but if you see this in the arcades you might want to pop a quarter in, but no more. Just for the lulz. Cosmic Cop is another one of Irem's worthy shoot-'em-ups. In Cosmic Cop, you play as a police spacecraft who must dole out justice by way of the gun. Well, not exactly. There is no justice, just carnage. Cosmic Cop is a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up that reminded me a lot of Irem's other well-known shoot-'em-up named In the Hunt. At any rate, your spaceship is armed with a gun that you can power up, but the thing is with the power-ups is that they aren't as devastating as they are in other shoot-'em-ups. Well, when you compare them to, say, the homing laser. Your ship gets a laser that locks onto targets but drains the more you use it. It comes in handy especially in the boss fights. The levels are relatively short, but there are plenty of things to kill you. The boss fights in this game can be challenging, so it's best to approach this cabinet with a lot of quarters. The game's graphics and sounds are really signature Irem and added to the fun. The game is not the best of the Irem shoot-'em-ups, but it's worthy of a playthrough. Anyone who was there when the NES released might be familiar with Kung Fu Master, which is the arcade version of the NES Black Box launch title. The story follows Thomas as he tries to rescue the love of his life, Sylvia, from a gang that kidnapped her. The action in Kung Fu Master is similar to the NES cart. It is timeless. As Thomas, you can punch and kick and perform moves such as the jump kick and the leg sweep. Part of the fun is the enemies that you must defeat in each of the linear stages. Each stage has its own theme, whether it's fighting regular goons or these little dudes named Tom-Toms. You can also fight snakes and moths. The bosses that await you at the end of the stage are colorful and fun to fight, and they are a lot easier to defeat than I remember them. I have a lot of fond memories of this game on the NES, and my friends and I would always pop this one in and take turns beating the stages. It was great fun. It wasn't until the TurboGrafx-16 that I came to know of Vigilante, which is a spiritual sequel to Kung Fu Master. In Vigilante, you play as a lone vigilante who must rescue his girl named Madonna from the skinhead group that took her hostage. Much like in Kung Fu Master, your hands and feet are deadly weapons, and you use them to take out various skinhead gang members that try to stop you. The game was a staple in the arcade, and one of the things that I noticed most about it was the use of nunchucks. I can't tell you how much I love nunchucks in video games, and this game did not disappoint. Your controls are simple as they were in Kung Fu Master, but the moves are a lot easier to pull off. The enemies in this game are colorful and fun to fight, and the end stage bosses are fun to fight as well. When this game made its way onto the TurboGrafx-16, I knew I had to have it, and it was then that I realized it was tied to Kung Fu Master. The setting in this game is different than Kung Fu Master as well, in that you fight all over New York in your quest to rescue Madonna. In all, these games represent a dying if not dead genre, the arcade side-scrolling beat-em-up, and one that I think you will enjoy. I have to admit the Bomberman games are something that I have avoided until the filming of this video. For some reason it never appealed to me, so going into 1992's Bomberman World, I only kind of knew what to expect, and that was only because of the old NES game. At any rate, I grew to like this game, but realized that this is an experience that is best played in multiplayer. For those who don't know, you play as Bomberman and are armed with guns. Just playing, you are armed with bombs and you must place them around the playfield to take out your enemies. The thing about it is that you have to place them strategically and have to think ahead in order for your bombs to be effective. The enemies all have their own special powers and try to thwart your efforts. They are fun to fight, and that's one of the strengths of the game. Another strengths are the power-ups included on the playfield. They are a must if you want to clear the screen. They make you faster, let you plant more bombs, and make your blasts more powerful, among other things. I found that the power-ups greatly improved my experience with the game. The one thing that I couldn't stand about this game, however, is the music. It's super repetitive and I wish there was a way to turn it off. It's bad. The graphics aren't too shabby for a puzzle game. They aren't bad at all. The game is really rather lonely, however, with only a single player. The game allows you to play with others and is probably a whole lot more fun playing with friends. At any rate, I had more fun with this game due to the boss fights and the enemies. It's a game that slowly grew on me, and I'm glad I played it for this episode. I first came to be familiar with Ninja Spirit on the underrated TurboGrafx-16, but I can't say that I ever played it. It wasn't until I started researching the games for this episode that I realized that this is an arcade game and that the TurboGrafx game was a port of that. In Ninja Spirit, you take on the role of a ninja warrior who is trying to defeat the villains who are responsible for your father's death. You start your journey with a katana, some shurikens, this bomb-like thing, and a grappling hook. As you play the game and defeat the enemies, you can power up each one of those weapons and get a power-up that will make you clone yourself, and it helps you out with the bad guys. This game is a side-scrolling hack and slash that is reminiscent of games like Shinobi, but has its own flavor to it. The game is extremely challenging and can be hair-pulling at times. The bosses in this game are a lot of fun to fight, but I can't say the same about just the regular enemies you face. They come at you from all sorts of angles, and it's difficult to get the beat on them for any prolonged period of time. The game also lets you jump fairly high to get yourself out of danger, but does not allow you to do any ninja magic. I mean, come on! I need some ninja magic every once in a while, especially with this game. I did enjoy playing it for this episode, but Ninja Spirit would be a lot more fun if it weren't so darn difficult. Much like Ninja Spirit, Lightning Sword is a side-scrolling hack and slash that is less difficult than Ninja Spirit, but just slightly less fun. This is because of the lack of the variety in the weapons that you can use. In Lightning Sword, you play as one of two samurai warriors who is out to avenge your sweetheart that was brutally cut down by a gang of hooligans. In Lightning Sword, you are armed with a sword that does lightning, hence the name of the game. And that's about the only weapon you will be wielding. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you hold the attack button, the sword charges and unleashes a lightning attack once you release the button. It's extremely powerful and also makes the game a bit easier than it should be. The enemies in this game fall in line with what you would expect in a ninja-based side-scrolling hack and slash. You fight a lot of the same dudes in Lightning Sword, but that's not a big issue. The bigger issue is the blandness of the combat. While I did have fun playing this game, it could have been a whole lot better if it were longer and perhaps had a bit more variety in the weapons. The game is good to play if you ever see it in the arcade, and you can probably beat it by putting a couple of dollars in it. Anyone who's been watching the channel knows that I love beat-em-ups. These games are even more enjoyable when they have to do with a medieval warrior type theme like Golden Axe. Now, Blade Master is no Golden Axe, not even close, but it's still good for a playthrough, especially with a friend. As the story goes, a dark cloud descended into the land and phantom soldiers sprung from it. By the time it was said and done, Princess Amina was coerced to free their evil king from the world of darkness. What does the princess get as thanks? She gets turned into a woman with a snake body. How do you like that? At any rate, the story doesn't matter. You play as either Arnold or Roy to rid the land of the king and his armies and to rescue the princess. I really wanted to love this game, but there are better beat-em-ups made by Irem that I'll be talking about in just a bit. This is a mediocre weapons-based beat-em-up that has pretty good graphics and music, but that the combat is super bland. The character is armed with either a sword or a spear, and that's about it. You can slash your weapon, jump and do a jumping attack, and nothing else. There are no special attacks, not even the kind that I love that drain your life with every use. There are no grapple attacks or even dash attacks. It's all just so basic. The enemies in this game, however, are cool to fight and look at. Ditto with the bosses. They are tough, but would be so much better with a more varied moveset. This game is just meh. It's not to say it's completely worthless. I have played better games, but I have certainly played worse. This game is worthy of a playthrough just so you can say you beat it and then you can move on to something better. Such as Ninja Baseball Batman. With Ninja Baseball Batman, Irem came out with one of the wackiest beat-em-ups I've ever played. Period. Half the time I didn't even know what I was fighting. Is that a bat holding a bat who's trying to kill me? It's all so crazy. As one of the ninjas, you must recover the stolen memorabilia and get to the bottom of who's behind the theft. You get to choose from 4 different characters, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Sound familiar? The combat in this game is mostly satisfying, albeit confusing, simply because of the sheer amount of eye candy happening in front of you on your screen. The stages are set out in locales like San Francisco, Texas, Chicago, and New York, with each stage having its own unique set of enemies and bosses. The enemies are really off the charts, and it's pretty clear, at least to me, that the creators of this game were on some good drugs. Your characters can use grapple attacks and dash attacks, and then there's a classic push both jump and attack buttons at the same time for a special life-draining attack. All while playing this game, I couldn't get over the weirdness of some of the bosses. It's all so crazy. Aside from your moves, you can toss grenades and these bases that give you different power-ups. It's all good fun. This game is probably best played with friends, and I have seen videos of this game in the wild at the Galloping Ghost Arcade. It's a destination place for arcade lovers, and I hope to one day be able to play it in the wild. And now I'm going to show you some of Irem arcade games that I have talked about before on the Big Retro Show. So, take a look. And that's going to be it for the Big Retro Show. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, consider subscribing to the channel, dropping a comment, and leaving a like. And I will catch you on the next Big Retro Show.